I want to talk about blinds some more. All right. Let's go. I just want to say you did a very good job. So good job. It's that thing where you're actually kind of smart. Things you say make you sound dumb.
Yeah, we both do that.
What's that called?
Nope.
Yeah, but you're a little different, Dad.
Stop saying sure! Oh, it drives me crazy!
Are you seeing clear? Are you seeing clear?
I think most people just ignore the tough question. This isn't Minecraft. This is real life.
You are hilarious.
That was not the dog, Dad. That was you.
Yeah, to solve this, we have to completely ignore the main problem.
That makes literally no sense to me. I just want to die.
And that, my friend, is one of my favorite things about you. Hey, welcome to Renaissance Radio. That was a hard cut on the intro. That's okay, because this is new. Episode number 3, I think. Is that right?
Sure.
I don't know. You actually listen to the show. I don't listen to the show. I'm here with Kory Hubbell on the double. Tons of trouble. Barney Rubble.
In my bubble.
Does that cover like all of the obnoxious childhood first week rhymes?
Yeah.
Like the telescope?
Yeah. Just spelled different.
Your bullies were smarter than I am now. Like at this exact moment, because I, with 100 guesses, would have never won the prize guessing the telescope. Really? Yeah, I got words like trouble and double.
That's rhyming.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's nice.
But I didn't even make the connection to the actual word with all that book learning that your bullies were doing. That, I would say that's
like
smart
bullies.
Yeah, that's the
in Northwest
worst.
Ohio.
I'm telling you what, dude, like that's the worst. When your bullies are also smarter and more athletic than you are. Yeah, dude, like it's like, oh, I'm so glad I graduated so that my bully can finally get to Harvard, you know? I don't know. That didn't happen. I went to a pretty small school. None of the. I'm just kidding. I don't know. Let's backtrack. I'm just trying to hurt anybody's feelings, but I'm sure.
But yes, that is my name.
That is your name.
That is my name.
And wow, we covered a lot of ground just on that first name. I don't know how we're going to ever fit all this in to one episode.
I was telling Sherry, my wife, before we recorded, excited to have you over. Welcome to our homestead.
It's so beautiful, by the way.
But I said,
legit.
I'm either going to be the best or worst guest he's ever had, and I'm definitely leaning toward the latter.
Yeah, I think that's what we need on the show a little bit is lower expectations.
We're both transient thinkers.
Thank you. A little plug there. You pulled a term from the show showing that you actually listened to it.
I do. I've listened to all your episodes. Big fan.
Somebody told me today, they're like, oh my gosh, your show is so incredible. I saw it the other day. And I went, like, what do you think the show is? And they said, well, I said, well, this is a radio. You got to hear it, you know? And they went, well, I saw that it was that you have a show. I saw it on Facebook that you have a show. And I went, yeah.
Words are important.
Well, and here's the thing. We'll get into your qualifications here in a minute, and that'll pretty much wrap up episode 1. But I detest the posturing of trying to actually make somebody listen or assume that it's a good show for them. I personally am not like always a huge fan quite yet. You know what I mean? Like it takes time. I mean, you've been through this. You guys are almost 100 episodes in, and it's not a given that you even enjoy your show in terms of your own standard as a consumer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so listeners are better. So if you ever see me on the street and for some reason know who I am for any reason, I will not pester you about whether you listen to the show or not. In fact, I try to avoid that question, to be honest with you. If people say something and they're like, wow, I enjoyed this specific part, I'm like, that is so, thank you so much.
Yeah, it's helpful feedback instead of like, oh, it's cool what you're doing.
But it reminds me of that, you meet somebody at a party and then they make you tell them why you are supposed to remember them. Remember, like, you know that thing?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That is an awkward social thing. Even more awkward when you do that and you've already... Wait, what am I saying? You act
paint
like,
the picture. Tell me what's happened.
Walk into a scene.
Yeah.
Not sure if you've met the person before.
Pretty sure. Not sure. Not sure at all, actually. Pretty sure.
Start to do the thing.
Yeah. Oh, hey, buddy. Right. Good to see you again.
Yeah. And they're like, either we've never met before, you were creating that, or even worse, you have no recollection of the initial meeting.
Yeah.
And they're like, this is the 3rd time.
Yeah. And even worse, if you can imagine actual situations that we get ourselves into, you do the exact same attempt to figure out who they are all 3 times. So they've already seen your tricks to try to like pull it out. How are they doing? How's your
Buckaroo, there's a
yeah.
Brian Regan bit about not sure if he's met somebody before.
Yeah. It's like how's the deal with the thing? Yeah, absolutely. So Kory is what? I mean, I had so much time to prepare, but it's tough. Kory is
I'm excited to see where you go here.
Yeah. I mean, how do you sum up a guy who's insummonable? You know what I mean?
You're just be summoned.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, Kory, come here. Debunked. No, but Kory is extremely talented, and you mix that talent with the grit and the stick-to-itness, and you get this unstoppable force at the height of an industry. No, this is the truth. This is the truth. The guys there are people like LeBron, there are people like, Elon Musk and those guys. There's guys that we use as examples of like in all of human history, Napoleon, Dynamite, and those sort of guys, right?
Right.
You're not that guy. I mean, you're nowhere near. No, I'm just kidding.
No, in fact, I often go, LeBron and I are the same age.
I often don't do that
In my head.
on purpose. My wife does that, which is cool.
In my head, like college athletes, even though they're in their early 20s,
Yeah.
feel like they're 10 years older than me.
Yeah, they're in their early my daughter's age. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you look at how big they are or what somebody's achieved in pro sports, and then
Yeah.
you go, we have the same birth month.
Yeah, and there's nothing but math between you and that that conclusion, which is just like didn't do that twice as much
Haven't
time.
achieved anywhere near.
Now, in terms of intros, this is one of the more flattering that I'll do. Hang in there, it's coming. But if you have somebody who is talented and also does the work and is also growing regularly in their knowledge of their craft, practicing, and just sticks with it. And I say just because all the other parts are really, really hard. I guess just is the hard part too, sticking with it, not giving up. You find yourself in a situation like with Kory, who is very naturally gifted, but probably in your career now, that sticking with it has well compounded your giftedness you had in middle school.
Yeah.
Like that. I mean, that's the hard part. When you meet people, they say, I really, really, really want to do this thing, but they're doing a different job and then their hobbies are different. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
when do you really, really want to do this?
Yeah.
And I just really respect Kory, not just because he's arrived at a really cool place in his career, but because of what it took to get there all the way through. And you're in some challenges now, I'm sure, but you are definitely at what a lot of people would be consider the pinnacle of an artistic career for most people.
Yeah, I often feel like I've fooled somebody.
Yeah.
I regularly struggle with imposter syndrome where I'm like, I've just put one foot in front of the other and ended up at a place that many would consider about the highest a guy who draws. I'm an artist, in case.
Yeah.
Artist and
Among
illustrator.
other things, yeah.
It's about the furthest.
Right. This is kind of invented to go past whatever the last highest thing was. Is what you're doing right now.
And I just keep like faking it till I make it. I know you don't love that expression.
Yeah.
But like I'm smart enough to recognize I'm not smart enough. And I always ask mentors good questions and take the next logical step. And I've sort of just found, I feel like I've always been carving my own.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. I don't know if I buy some of the
Okay.
words you're using because you're not faking it. Companies, like people draft high school kids who haven't proven they're going to be professional athletes yet because they possess the ability to adapt to that role. So the fact that you are not yet what you're hired for, you feel like maybe you faked it at times. This is true for all of us, but like, especially people who've actually done it. To me, fake is just the wrong word because your value in learning is higher than many people's value in teaching. So I think,
But the internal battle.
That's right.
Is a very real one. So very, if you would imagine, and I'm not trying to do the intro for you,
no, please.
but if you would imagine a Venn diagram where art blends with business, blends with consulting,
yeah.
in the middle there is this up and coming industry that has many terms, but probably the most
Which
fitting,
I'm grateful for.
Yeah. Probably the most fitting is graphic facilitation. So it's leading organizations through a series of structured conversations in a consulting fashion, leveraging large scale imagery that comes to life as the group brainstorms and thinks.
Yeah, it's almost like a learning style, but it's like a thinking style.
Yeah, but these are facilitated sessions,
Yep.
Structured dialogue. I work in tandem with a facilitator and an analyst. We've done a ton of work on the client ahead of time. We get them in a room where they're usually stuck. They're at a major inflection point in their business. We ask them a bunch of questions and start literally 100 linear feet of wall space when there's not COVID going on. We're doing it virtually.
Now it's 97.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100 linear feet of wall space that becomes a dry erase board where you are scribing, taking notes, and drawing from what are very ethereal conversations, very out there conversations.
I don't know what those are like.
We just did it for 2 hours before we pushed record.
Right on.
And then turning that into a visual that helps them get unstuck. So it's this new weird thing that I'm still trying to convince my parents is a real job.
Right.
Like, so what basically, and so I summarize it by saying I'm a professional doodler.
Yeah. Which is punting. It's basically what that is. That's punting.
So that's the
on
gist.
what you do.
And I do that for a very large and well-known company.
Yeah. And look, it's incredible. The stuff that you do. It's funny. Whenever I was talking to Sarah Mann, who's doing some really neat stuff in her space at the scale that she's working on. And I said the same thing. She said, like, I make cakes, and it's like I'm not actually frustrated. I'm just thinking, like, in my mind, there's this incredible thing. And I know at the end of it, probably the right thing to do is to say beautiful cakes. And in this moment, and for you, it's the same idea of like, yes, you do doodle, and yes, you do facilitate these discussions, but there's a wealth of knowledge in all of the stuff that you're doing, which we could explore and some of which is proprietary.
Right.
Right.
And that is the day job. And then separate from all of that, I'm just a guy who loves to draw. And so the way that looks, I have a small business studio called Hubbell Arts where I love designing. I love doing branding and identity work. Probably my most favorite space is in the athletic and sports space right now. I love designing.
It's a pretty tired space.
Athletic brands.
It's due for a refresh.
Yeah.
A lot of like clip art that's been pulled from bad, like copyright infringement too. Would you say?
Yeah. A lot of schools, and you've probably all, if you followed the public school route, you probably have a logo of a bulldog, eagle, Mustang that was drawn in the 70s.
What kind of cats do you see?
Wildcats a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Pumas.
Yeah.
No, I've never seen it.
King of the Cats.
But everybody shares the same mark.
Yeah, but they change the color.
They change the color, or worse, they'll steal from professional or collegiate sports teams.
Ooh.
And so I try to help them elevate their brands and reimagine.
What does that look like? Like, what's that process? What kind of, if people are listening and they want that done, like what does that kind of look like?
I just had somebody reach out at the end of last week, and I think they're Lions school in South Carolina. And it usually starts with a conversation. Why do you want to change it? What's causing your desire to rebrand? Asking a lot of questions, having a conversation. And I have this very iterative process where we work together to create something new. So they're a part of the design. It's not like I disappear and go draw a bunch of different lions and go, you like this one? Because there are websites. You could go to Fiverr.
We like the show Baskets, by the way. If you haven't seen the show Baskets, we will be doing Dale's voice.
We won't be.
Yeah.
You have the best Zach Galifianakis impression.
If I can work it in, I haven't used it in a while, but yeah, it's.
If you don't know that he has, I'm just going to address the listeners.
And I'm in the wide angle area of the shot too.
I said listeners.
Your
not
proportions are correct in the camera for your body.
Jeremy has the best Zach Galifianakis impression. I like a monkey. I like do the thing.
Yeah,
dance.
Yeah,
monkey.
I'll see if I can work it in at some point.
Okay, but anyway, surprise me.
So that's awesome, man. I think one of the things that we really appreciate about each other is just the acumen around that space, and I think I've really leaned on you recently in that area. I understand what you're saying, but I just haven't thought of it the way that you're explaining it to me, and so using new models of thinking to try to understand what Renaissance is even. I think I have a lot of the full ingredients kind of figured out, but the putting together of what this thing is something that's happening right in front of everybody. And I'm trusting that it will be the thing I say it is, and later we'll look back and it'll be like, oh, like you were so close there, or you were really far away. But Kory has been instrumental in, frankly, very few discussions. I mean, it's not like we talk about it, 3-4 times a week, but the discussions have been very impactful. So I wanted to thank you for that.
I think that I know everybody's a different kind of learner. Some of us are visual, some of us are experiential, right? When I look at my own life, anytime I was stuck or at an inflection point, usually it was a pastor or a friend sketching something on a napkin and going, it's kind of like this.
Right.
And they drew something that for me was like, oh my gosh, I never even thought of it that way. So I can see how this burgeoning field for artists as a scribe or visual strategist or graphic facilitator becomes this sort of like, especially in the IT space where you've got a lot of very left brain analytical folks, and you just grab an expo marker and a dry erase board and go, what about this? Have you thought about it this way?
Right. And the sorting is something that's really interesting to me. We were talking a bit about the
knowledge funnel.
The knowledge funnel. And it's cool.
Roger Martin.
It's really cool when you hear one of the things that happens, I think for both of our clients, like when we work with clients at different scales, obviously, but in the same idea, there's sort of an individual who is the owner of what's true and just needs to get their own idea back to themselves in a way they can explain it or think about it, or, maybe it just is disjointed. And so at its core, and I don't want to do a false parallel of the difference between this massive company and the small businesses I've worked with, but generally that's kind of what you're dealing with. You've got something awesome. You trust the people that you're talking to, or they wouldn't be in the position they're in. They're very skilled. They're not broken and you're fixing them. You're just interpreting. It's very interesting to interpret from someone to themselves. And that's just like a weird kind of vibe. And when it comes to the knowledge funnel, we'll talk more about that. Maybe we'll get back into that in a little bit later, because that'll get real nerdy real fast. And I'm excited. I'm personally, that's like saving the dessert till after the vegetables too for me, even though I like the vegetables too. Right on. But you and I both are going to be excited to chat about that stuff. But yeah, it's just such a weird feeling, but it's so gratifying, even down to an athletic logo or even a pricing structure for a client or something different things we do that we would consider a little more base and singular, right?
Yeah.
When you do your consulting work, you're working on a very holistic level with departments trying to understand. How would you describe that part? You're not giving them tasks, the IT department necessarily.
No, it's sometimes it's just clarity or communication. A lot of times we'll pool these people together in the same organization that work in their own little silos, we call them. So they're doing their own work, their heads down. They don't often work together. We'll pull all these decision makers from across the enterprise into one room, and we'll get the comment, this is the first time I'm meeting this person.
Oh yeah.
Who we have interdependencies in our day-to-day work, and I'm just now meeting them for the first time.
Let me ask you this. Why I'm isolating that now. The meeting part feels like the big part to them, right? Like, it was great. We finally got in a room and met each other. Well, that's not the secret sauce, though.
It's
they meet each other all the time.
Yeah.
What is the thing that's happening?
It is
the connection.
I like the term. Sorry, it's a bit buzzy, but
it's all right.
Co-creation. We got in a space. We brainstormed together, live, real time. We compressed time because this would have otherwise been 3 months worth of
That's
meetings.
The structured portion.
Yeah.
That brings the benefit of time.
We compressed time, and in 8 hours, we go, where are we today? Where do we want to be? What's getting in the way of us getting to where we want to be? And what are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
That is true for marriage counseling, fitness advice, anything, any type of consulting, or I don't like the term self-improvement, but it all comes down to
any sort of improvement.
Where are you today? Where do you want to be? What's getting in the way of you getting there? And what are we going to do about it?
This is really funny and hilarious. So if we go here to the Renaissance Agency, I'm not going to read it to everybody, but that's the map. Isn't that funny? And we've never talked about this.
Never talked about it.
I put in the process. If you go to my site, it says the process. What is it? Why does it matter? Where are we going? Why aren't we there yet? What's the plan? How do we execute?
Yep.
And it's funny because that's the imposter syndrome. The imposter syndrome is like, as you say that, I'm like, oh, that's what, like, I worked really hard to put that together. And it's like, well, everybody that knows is talking, but that's how this works. We are all kind of sharing knowledge as we can and growing as we can. but whatever's fundamentally true is what you've got to use. I mean, you don't get to invent what's true.
But you need an unbiased third party to help you get there, because you can't do therapy on yourself, right? Like,
Oh, that's a good point.
you've got to have that unbiased third party who has no skin in the game to ask those questions to help you get there. Even better if you have some visuals and real plans in place to go make it happen.
So that's my difficulty right now is I literally have this on my site, but I can't apply these filters to myself right now any further than what I already have, which I have to some large degree. Like there's been some cool stuff that I've gotten done, but and some clarity that's there. But there's a point where if you're not there and you're doing therapy on yourself, you're at a point where everything you're doing has been justified in your own mind already.
Yeah.
You know, so you have to have somebody else, which has been why you've been so helpful, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's a outside voice, I think, is all it is.
Yeah, super skilled outside voice. So
You're very kind.
so I wanted to talk. So that's kind of the intro, believe it or not. That's the intro of Kory and Jeremy.
25 minutes.
Yeah, and that's okay. Like I'm cool with that. I think, you know, we were laughing right before you came in. I made a joke about overthinking. You know, where somebody, what was the bit there? But I'm gonna give us space for a 25-minute intro like that went all over the place based on that joke.
Yeah, basically, like I'm a classic overthinker. We started our podcast over a year ago. In episode 2, I was like, "Oh, I didn't say this. I should have said this. I should have made this clearer." I do it all the time. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
If there's a social setting and I said something that I think may have gotten misinterpreted, I'm like texting the person.
Yeah.
Like, "Hey, I hope when I said
Yeah.
that you didn't think I meant, because when I was I actually,
Yeah.
I do that all the time." And you joke like, "Oh, that's your problem? The over part?"
Overthinking, yeah. Yeah, I'm at a point right now where I'm a little defensive of the visionaries, the overthinkers, the different groups like that. And so that's my snarky answer is like, "Oh, overthinking is your concern. You don't think underthinking is something that we should worry about." Okay, that's interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll just be over here thinking. Enjoy your
Even a little bit of thinking would have served you well.
your automatic meditation app that runs in your head. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh, it's fun to justify your own behavior for a little bit,
Isn't
and then
it?
when we get off air, we go, "We're the worst."
Why did we? I don't know.
What did
why.
we do?
Did I say?
So,
Did I thank my wife enough?
so two things. Yeah, did I thank my wife enough? Everybody knows
My wife's
at this
amazing.
point. Your wife is amazing, by the
Super
way.
supportive.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was a joke, because that was the thing I overthought.
Yeah.
Episode 1 of our podcast.
I remember.
I was like, "Oh, I didn't like. Did I like? Because she had my back, and
Yeah. It was assumed in your mind that everybody knew that you knew she was
right.
incredible.
Or
but
like
you
I
didn't.
have to say my whole story in every episode.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so I don't think it's a good time to end the intro. So basically, Kory's doing the corporate work, very high level, awesome. I'm gleaning what I can there. He's also doing his own individual work, which is pretty throttled right now in terms
Fully
of
committed to my
scope.
job.
Fully committed to your day job, which I am too. Of course, I could do so much more, but I am fully committed to my day job.
Anything I do on the side never gets in the way of what I do.
That's right. That's what's really important, everybody, is that it never gets in the way of your day job. So that's very true. And also, what's the scope of your creative work with Hubbell Arts right now? Where would you rate it if it was a feeling?
So I'm at this interesting inflection point where
good.
The art that I did for enjoyment, I never had to make a certain amount each month, but my wife, who handles our finances, would say it'd be great if you could bring in about X amount of dollars with Hubbell Arts this month. So I had this like sort of soft goal out there. I recently changed jobs. That took care of most of the needs. So now I'm at this really interesting place where I don't need to rely on Hubbell Arts like I once did. And now I can take on projects that I'm really excited about professionally, or a customer that's willing to pay the true market value. Because, we struggle as people pleasers. We do a lot of favors for people, $50 logos here and there. And I'm blessed.
There's a cost beyond the price for those, for sure.
I'm at a place where I don't have to do that anymore, and so now I can think about larger scale projects and taking on things that just personally excite me.
I have an idea. Let's talk about it sometime.
Okay.
I don't know if it's an on-air thing or not, but I'm really excited about it.
I help you with the logo, and then you don't use it. Is that your idea?
Wow, that was oddly specific and
I'm teasing.
would be really weird if that happened. I also forgot to bring the cake of the logo.
Which Mazzy, was it Mazzy Cakes?
Manzi, yeah.
Manzi Cakes.
So her name is Sarah Mann.
Wow,
And,
Sarah, your cakes are
unbelievable.
awesome. Really awesome.
Unbelievable. She's at an interesting point as well, similar to where you are, which is she can't really take on more, but she wants to be the best that she can be in it. And there's just no space beyond family to grow the business. And so we're working on a couple different ways to bring in a bit more revenue to cover the cost. But in general, she's kind of at her perfect spot right now.
Yeah.
And so that's really neat. You're in a similar situation where you just want it to be right, whatever you're going to do. Yeah. And then I loved, by the way, I left a voicemail. I messaged her on her Instagram. I also loved Kindness Batters. I just wanted to.
Yeah, I would be remiss if I didn't mention my sister also makes phenomenal cakes.
Those are not competing.
No, they're not
There
at
is plenty of Sweet Tooth, and they're actually in different areas. And
it's perfect. Actually.
Definitely, reach out on the links profile. We'll have Renaissance Radio. I'll try to link up everybody and make sure you can get to support people who are keeping artistry in that craft. It's really, really neat. It's a level of thoughtfulness that seems insignificant, but it's not. It's a very meaningful moment when people receive those cakes, and so it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you're trying to decide that. So that's definitely something.
Yeah, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, and so I don't know if the day job, like as I'm fully committed to.
Yeah, we're all very fully committed to our
fully
day
committed
jobs.
to our day jobs.
Yeah. Can we do a shirt? Can we do that shirt for Side Project Entrepreneurs?
Yeah.
Do you want to?
Let's do it.
All right.
So that's taking care of the first rung of the ladder, if I can put it that way. That's one of those visuals that one of my mentors helped me with once.
Yeah.
Rung one of the ladder is taking care of your bills.
Yep. It's hard to create and live out of any of the adjectives when you're in a scarcity mindset.
Yeah. Rung two might be your short-term goals, things you're passionate about, passion projects. And then rung three is like long-term, I want to have a shop like Adam Savage and tinker and make things. I want to do, I want to make props and costumes and
right.
That might be your long-term goal, right? So rung one is now met. Thank you, Jesus.
Yeah.
Rung two now is like, so what do I want this
limited space I've got left? Like
what do I want that to be?
Yeah.
And we're very similar in that I've always had this dream of like I call it a collective. The word agency is probably
that's a good word for it. Yeah. Yeah.
I want this.
There's going to be crossover because it's a dream space for anyone who works in a creative to have structure without barriers. And so there's going to be crossover between what Kory and I talk about.
Yeah.
And that's good. That's good that we're heading in the right
why we're
direction.
here,
That's
Jimmy.
right. That's right.
But to have this sort of like studio collective agency where small to mid-sized businesses can come in and we can help you with your creative solutions. So not only helping you do the consulting that would lead to maybe a marketing campaign
Right.
or a rebrand.
In this space, let me stop there with your vision real quick. We'll take a pause. Are you talking about the artists or are you talking about the clients or?
Yeah, the clients. Sorry.
clients.
So the clients approach us, the agency, the collective, the thing, and say we're thinking about a rebrand or a launch or a product launch or we're at an inflection point in our business and we got to rethink everything. So like a operational change management, like big, hairy stuff. And we can say, hey, we could help you with that from the consulting end to the what ifs, asking good questions, facilitating you through that conversation. And I happen to know a videographer, a photographer, a logo designer.
Yeah.
We can make this real. Yeah, something like that.
Dude, that sounds, I want to be there.
And there's exposed brick.
Yeah.
And there's
espresso
machines.
Noodles everywhere.
Sure.
So many kinds of noodles.
So many noodles.
Dude, I'm not kidding. Like,
but that's what we're doing. Like, shout out to Renaissance Agent. I'm just gonna, here's my intro for
thanks,
you.
bud.
And it's funny to me that this is the longest intro ever. And one of your episodes on our podcast was called The Longest Intro Ever with Jeremy Kester.
yeah. Well,
That's
there
funny.
seems to be a common denominator there.
So
I love, just a second. I love that. I think that's amazing. I love that. And whether it's collaboratively or from the outside or in no way connected, I really hope you get there. I don't see a reason why you wouldn't. I really love that vision.
there's some beautiful crossover.
There is some beautiful crossover
But
there.
I've watched all your episodes and listened. And I just thought, if you take the girls from Blonde Robin, if you take, I listened to your Mike Dixon episode, if you take like all these interesting people that you've already chatted with and put them in a room for just an
87
hour,
seconds. Yeah.
the IP that would be created in just 87 seconds of all these really interesting people with some conflicting, but mostly converging.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to get the social media thing figured out.
Yeah.
Because the algorithms try to rein you in and they throttle back your reach. And I don't know how to do that well. But like if I got some help on the social media side, mixed with some my own clarity work, back to you can't do therapy on yourself. And one of my favorite books ever is The Story Brand. And I don't know how to story brand myself.
So good. We talk about that in when I was the guest on From the Middle podcast. If you go back to the early days, Kory did a good synopsis of that.
But I need to do that on myself and make what I'm offering clear. But again, I don't know what that is yet.
Yeah.
I know what I like.
Yeah.
And I know what interests me. And I even the reason that I do mascot brands as opposed to just a monogram, a letter, is because I like to draw. So because I draw, the logos that I do are illustration heavy instead of simple marks or symbols, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I've always found a way to like bring in those things that, I mean, we're surrounded by action figures and Lego sets. And because I just like the inspiration of these things, I like them sort of funneling my interests into a very specific area, and figuring out how to monetize it is my challenge. So,
well, that sounds fun, by the way. The monetized part sounds fun. I just want to share in your vision there. And I think one of the things that's encouraging to me is that you see that about the show, because I think one of the things that's very, there's some things that are clear to me, but not to the listeners yet. And I think just saying it over and over in different ways as I discover is not the right approach. You know, I'm just going to continue to demonstrate it until it becomes clear.
Yeah.
But that's the dream for me. The dream for me is, and has been from the beginning, but the problem is you have to get there somehow. And it's very difficult to occupy the dream space and the pragmatic space at the same time. And then you get caught in that pragmatism and forget where you're at. And one of the discussions we had was very helpful in that you were just like, well, what do you want to do? Like what, you know what I mean? And it wasn't super clear to you what I was saying.
It wasn't until your assistant sent me the questionnaire for the intake, the guest services for being a guest on the show. And I was like, oh, I get what the Renaissance Agency is now. Based on your questions alone, I deduced from that what you want to help people get unstuck.
Yeah.
And I reduced it for the purposes of playing it back to you as like creative consultant. I think I said business consultant.
Which but I know what you meant.
I took back.
I know what you meant.
Sorry.
Yeah,
so
no, that's all right.
But
like that even is a pathway. No,
Is this?
No.
Are we?
Stop saying sure. Yeah, no. For me, it's I want to have a place, and you see that in the small office now, where it's, you know, like I said in the one episode, it's chalk without a chalkboard. It's just things like you've done, like you surround yourself with things that you draw creative energy from, and you draw the stories too. I mean, you think of the authors and when they spoke at the TED Talk, and you draw so much from that stuff. And for me, I have this prosumer printer that I can do 13 by 19s on, that I did the art that's up there, and a Cricut maker that we can do fabric patterns, and we can do stickers, and we can do all sorts of things with. And I haven't really used that stuff yet, but the reason I have all that in there is like, that's really my dream, is that there's this space for artists, craftsmen, techies, and thinkers who are greater, that it's kind of I don't know. It reminds me of some of the early days of assembling superheroes in my imagination, of like, if you had the fire guy mixed with the, and then it's like, can you create, it's like Dungeons and Dragons or whatever, or Magic the Gathering, and you're creating combos that can't be beat. It just feels like that to me. Yeah. And I want to have, a router that can cut wood and whatever. I just want to get to a place where people come in. It sounds like we might share a building, to be honest with you. Right. But I want people to come in who think that their problem is X, Y, and Z. We remove that from them and then go, here's the tools, here's the thinking, here's the mentor, here's the client, here's everything you need, go do it. And I think that'll flush a lot of people out that'll go, never mind, I actually didn't want to do this. But it'll find that very few misunderstood people that can't get there. You know what I mean? That are stuck, you know?
And it's also really hard to define and brand.
Yeah.
Like, how do you explain? We just want to put these creative people in a room and let their collective knowledge help you, customer, client, whatever term you choose, get unstuck, because they can go make any of it happen.
Yeah. And the other thing is, it's not that I'm taking people who are doing it and then adding them together. It's not like football players that are playing football and you assemble a good team. It's literally like people who never thought, like, for example, the Blonde Robin girls. This was the day after.
They were great, by the way.
They were great. Yeah, they were great. I could have done a little better on the audio, but they were fantastic.
You were terrible.
Yeah, I was terrible. They were great. The day after, I met with a potential client who needs some help.
Yeah.
And kind of felt like she just needed pictures. And I was like, we don't even really know what we're photographing at this point. Like, we need to talk about this. But I texted him while I was sitting there. The point is, I texted him and I said, hey, are you interested in retail merchandising? Here's how I would calculate a rate. Get me a number. And I pitched retail merchandising to the client. They had never in one moment ever thought of retail merchandising. I want to find people who have these incredible skills and passions and put it somewhere where they can do what they love to do. I want to get people to their third thing through shortcuts.
Or help them clarify. Like, one of my favorite things that you say is helping you say what you've been trying to say all along. Right?
Yeah.
But the ways,
which is ironic, as I can't seem to articulate what I'm trying to do yet. Yeah.
Same, right?
Yeah, fist bump for the radio audience.
Where I had a friend, a church friend, approach me and said, he's pretty high up at a local hospital system, and he said, hey, we're going to start this program from the ground up, but I need a one-pager. I need a one illustration to make it clear.
What is this thing?
To make it clear to stakeholders what this is at the right level. Because if it's too detailed and 24 pages, nobody's going to read that. Like, I need a one-shot explanation of what it is. And so I asked him a handful of questions. And I said, what are the inputs of this thing? What does it kind of look like? What are some of the mechanisms? And then what does it churn out? What is this thing that we're talking about churn out? It was like 4 questions, 15 minutes on the phone. And he's like, bro, that's it. And I doodled it up and gave it to him. And now he has his whole executive summary value proposition in one page that he can take to anybody in the hospital system and go, this is what I'm proposing.
The weirdest thing, if you're listening and you're not in the space at all, is that was questions. Like, Kory is not holding on to answers that's, I think, the old guard. The old guard is the guru thing I was railing against. Can you take those two thoughts I just brought up and maybe connect them instead of me connecting them? Gurus and questions over answers.
Well, he already had the information.
Yeah.
In this case, my friend, he knew what this thing was.
He wouldn't say he did, though, would he? Or at least a lot of times they go, I'm stuck.
They don't think that
they don't think they have the answer.
I struggle to make the comment I'm about to make, but something people tell me often is that you put a visual to what I've been trying to explain.
Dude, you're not taking over any IP when you say something similar. It's okay that we do the same idea this different way.
You put on paper what's been in my mind for 2 years.
Yeah.
That I couldn't. They would say it's because I can't draw. It's because I'm not creative.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people who draw that don't all of a sudden realign.
I didn't do anything.
Executive expectations.
And this is why I struggle with the imposter syndrome, because I'm like, I didn't do anything other than dumb it down for me.
Yeah.
So that
pretend you're talking to an idiot, because I'll make that easy.
And that is one of the tools I would often use as a consultant. I would say, explain this to me like I'm a 5th grader. Why? Because the average person consuming what you're about to tell me, you should probably make it at that level.
Even lower if they don't care. I mean, that's something people don't consider. You're right. You can have someone at an unbelievably high intelligence that's just not dedicated to listening. You have to boil it to where a half listener can get it.
Yeah. So I said, I'm not a medical person. I'm not in the hospital system. Dumb this down to me like I'm a 5th grader. What are the inputs? What are some of the mechanisms? And what does it churn out when you're done? And why is that valuable? And those are your questions. And so I think it's a communication block.
What's the difference between that and a guru? Because last episode, or maybe was it 2 episodes ago, I talked about how I have a disdain for. I said gurus, but really what I was saying was anytime I sound like this, I have a disdain for it.
Because I have nothing to give him from that moment on that will help him make it real.
His participation is not only helpful, it is vital. It's the only thing.
He takes that and then runs with it. I told you about this before we recorded, but I got to sit in when some consultants, it's a group called Intentional Churches, they sat down with a local nonprofit and they brought in everybody in the organization and asked them a series of 4 questions. I forget what they all were, but it was something like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how comfortable are you with risk? On a scale of 1 to 10, how good are you at taking something and making it real? A series of questions. You get a total, and then you divide by a certain number. And then you can see in your entire organization on a sliding spectrum, here are all your visionaries, your Mike Dixon episode. Here are all your visionaries over here. Here are all your, just give me the thing and I'll go make it happen. And everybody in between. And what they found was, for this specific organization I was sitting in, they had virtually nobody in the middle. Mm-hmm. They had no bridges to take the visionaries concept, hand it to the doers. I'm using very simplified terms, so please excuse that. Take it to the doers. So there was this massive communication gap, but also huge gaps in their organization of taking these wonderful initiatives and making them real.
They hired, they undervalued that as its own space. Yeah. Like, I mean, or they didn't view it. I say that oftentimes with HR covers like what should be 4 departments a lot of times at organizations. Like education is its own thing, you know, and keeping your team safe is another thing. Yeah.
So for me, back to Kory. Yeah. Unless we're talking about a logo or graphic design or illustration, you want a caricature of your family. Yeah. I can't help you with any of the doing.
Right.
I'm really good at asking you questions. I get really excited when people are at an inflection point or stuck. I love asking questions. I love helping them think about things they may have never considered otherwise. Yeah. And then going, good luck with that.
Yeah. Yeah. So in your interactions with me, what, because I do enjoy making the first version. I like making the shortcut, the software. You know, I'm the one doing the mock-ups for the tear sheets and everything else like that. I don't like doing the next 400 iterations. I'd like someone else to take that off. Okay, great. We got it to good for today. It's known good. Now you continue to upgrade it, and I need to get back out to where I live.
Yeah, so that's where the knowledge funnel that we were referencing earlier comes in.
What's that book again?
It's The Design of Business by Roger Martin. And in it, in the opening chapters, and I've not fully read the book, so I've got more work to do on this myself, but imagine a funnel with 3 layers. The first of which is called mystery. It's a bunch of scattered what ifs. We have no idea. Yeah. We're in the wilderness. Yep. The middle of the funnel is called heuristics, or what was the term I gave you?
When I was looking at it, I was thinking of organizing thoughts and
you're beginning to do some grouping.
You said it's the only one with arrows. It's the only one.
Yeah, you're starting to, maybe this goes together, but we're not sure.
Yeah. Oh, and those 2 things are more like rectangles.
Yeah,
they're more
Seems
similar.
to me this could be connected over here, but we're not sure yet. We haven't solved it. Yeah. And then the very bottom of the knowledge funnel is algorithms. You've gotten this down to an exact science.
It's just execution.
Process. It's execution. So what I was suggesting, my hypothesis, and the conversations that we've had, is you personally, Jeremy Kessler, that's why you love wilderness, right? You love to go out into the mystery and begin to gather inputs. You like helping people to the middle, heuristics. Yeah. You like helping people begin to put things together.
And then hire for the rest.
Because I've now given you the model. Somebody else can take it from heuristics to algorithms, or I'll do one mock-up, or I'll do one app or one API connection or one system, let you take it and run with it.
Because we know people need that to see it, to understand it. But
absolutely. Yeah. But if you spin that to look at a business where most businesses fail, especially startups, is they've done that work. They get down to algorithm and they stop and live in algorithm, and they forget to go back out to mystery and reinvent themselves and think of what the next thing is. That's why smart companies have innovation labs and R&D, because they're forcing themselves to go back out into mystery and what if, and what's the next thing we're not thinking? How are we going to get disrupted? Right?
Yeah. They pay to break themselves in a sense, but they own the fix and the break and the incumbent.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so
that's awesome.
I think where the Renaissance Agency might live is sort of in that middle bit, which is starting. It's what we talked about earlier. Starting to connect otherwise grouped together things, right? and gone, what if we put somebody who bakes cakes and a guy who builds apps in a room together for an hour?
Right.
How could we systematize the order process so that to help you scale?
Yeah, man. That's and what I feel like I see that before the mystery a lot of times, and it's kind of frustrating and a lonely place at times, because I usually feel like the barrier is the person who benefits less than the actual limitation. So the person who benefits is holding on to these limitations, and I'm going, nope, those aren't real. We can knock that out real quick. And I'm actually, unless I have the perfect client situation, like Coco's River Outfitters and several other clients, the success stories of the clients I've had, in those situations, we just rapidly get there. Boom, 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 boom. But in situations where I'm trying to go out and push this thought process, it's very flat. It's very confusing. It's very labored. And so that's what this is with Renaissance Radio, is to begin to kind of find the behind the scenes button of it.
And that's just one mental model that has helped me drastically, right? I saw that and I went, totally makes sense. And that's why I look at your comments, and even on the reviews on iTunes or like some of the comments on YouTube when you turn them on, and people are saying like, Jeremy helped me think outside the box, think outside. What they're saying is that Jeremy helped me get out here to mystery and heuristics to help me begin to connect or see things I never would have considered otherwise.
Yeah.
I'm happy to take that and algorithmatize it. There's a new one.
Yeah.
But I needed somebody to be, my favorite word, disruptively curious.
Let's go.
To come in and go, hey, what if? Hey. And that's why that, like, he's either a genius or he's mad thing sort of happens, because like this guy comes in and asks you all these disruptive questions, makes you think about things you never would have thought about otherwise, and helps you.
And then cleanup at the end is important. Like, you can't just walk around disrupting thinking all the time. You have to.
No, you got to deliver.
Once you identify that this is this and not that, that's why I used to call the work that I did years ago. And it's a tool in the tool belt now, but it was a stage of life that I was learning about, which was clarity work. Simon Sinek had begun to do his thing. And so we all kind of went, oh yeah, that's right. Cause, I don't know if I'd ever read his book. I think his presentation, his TED Circle presentation, was really the fundamental thing that changed it for a lot of us. And, name dropping Apple helps, like, obviously, but, he really opened that door. Then there were some other folks that were talking in other ways. And that's what that clarity work was. Is like, we have the entire English language that we have access to. You're choosing to use these words. What if, what are you really saying? Which words best communicate what you're really saying? And it's breaking it all the way apart into long paragraphs and prose, and then bringing it back down into a sentence. And you go, guided hunts among friends. What's the big deal?
Oh, dude.
And it's the only deal. It's like,
I sat down with a local business owner, and he asked me to do a logo. They mean rebrand. They say, will you do a new logo?
For me, it's video, by the way.
Yeah.
Hey, will you do a video? Also, we need to know what we're going to say and why we're going to say it, and what
100%.
campaign goes with it. Yeah.
So he goes, we're going to rebrand. I've taken the business from my father. I want to give it a fresh coat of paint. Pretty it up for us, will you, Doodle boy? So
change the color.
Change the color. Make it pop.
Yeah.
You want to tick off a designer, say make it pop.
Contrast filter, $400.
Yeah. So he goes, what's the beginning of your process? And I said, we sit down at Starbucks and I ask you questions. And he goes, that doesn't feel at all like designing me a logo. And one of those first questions is, give me adjectives of how you want people to describe your business. And he goes, what are we doing this for? I said, because if you tell me legacy, family, heritage, proud, that logo looks very different than cutting edge, fun.
And literally font and line work will get you, like, I'm not minimizing what you're doing, but even those small pieces, font and line work, dramatically, as you said earlier, change.
Did I say dramatically?
It feels like maybe you did or Harley did. Okay. I don't know. It was a bearded guy.
Yeah. We're all bearded.
We're all
guys
the same.
on this show.
Even those small things.
But the words you give me at Starbucks,
–
when we have that conversation, will drastically change where your logo falls on that spectrum, because that's a very very different brand. Because brand is how people view you. It's not colors. It's not a logo.
Yeah, it's how people gossip about you.
It's what people say when they're talking about you. That is your brand. It's on the viewer. It's on the recipient, not you.
Right.
So anyway, it threw him off, but I sort of love that, right? Because the words he gives me, again, drastically change how we move forward with his project.
So the space that I was working in with that was interesting because I would take it to phrase and language. It's like a linguistic brand guide, basically. And that was a whole piece of the consulting process, which would benefit, obviously, a designer.
Yeah.
But I didn't have the ability personally to take that into a design space. So then the language would then convert to what was said in the video and the visuals of the photos and videos that would do it that way. But, and I'll do it again too. You ask me that one more time, I'll throw my iPad completely off the desk. I'm not going to check right now. Well, my mood will decide how it went.
Is this the longest episode ever?
No, but it's the longest intro ever for sure. But yeah, that language informs, and I think people intrinsically know that because it feels bad when the wrong word is used about you. It feels bad. And so people, maybe theologians would say in a similar way, they would say like describing God, describing our relationship with him. They want the right words to be used because even a slightly wrong word can give you the wrong idea. Mm-hmm. And in the same way, like when people describe you and they say he's kind of, he's a little crazy, what do they mean by crazy? Right. Like, what do they mean by that? Is that because that word is so open to interpretation? And so I think that it's easy to underestimate that level of thoughtfulness, but to have that level of thoughtfulness, so let me put it this way, to have that level of clarity, you have to be willing to be questioned and you have to be willing to prove your case, which feels bad. And so in that process, when I was doing it, I would say, I said to Sarah, this didn't feel bad at all, but I said to her yesterday, she said, which is totally fine. If you order a cake like this, the same design thing you would do. Like if somebody said, can you just freshen this logo up?
Yeah, just pretty it up.
You would go, which is fine. And I said to her, I go, is it fine? Is it fine that people call you and ask for that? And she goes, and I said, you hate it. She's like, yeah, I hate it. And it's like, okay, say that. Like you hate it. You hate it. But that when you say you hate that, it doesn't mean you hate the person. No. You still love the person. And so those words matter and how we describe ourselves matter. And then that it just continues to compound as you design your work, as you design your photography, your logo, your graphics and all that stuff. It's wild, man. Really the only reason I had you on, if I'm being honest, which I am starting now, is I wanted to tell art jokes. That was really all it was, because you have college art jokes and I have art jokes from the street. Because I have a GED in artism.
What do you mean art jokes?
I don't know. I just want to be one of the dudes with art jokes. So let's just tell some art
puns
jokes
about art.
I think a pun would be a good place to start.
I know my disdain for puns.
Okay, good. Let's start there then. So what's a art concept that I'd never learned because I didn't go to college?
There isn't. It's be glad. No.
Are there any art concepts I can work off of here as I do my routine? Mm-mm. There's none? Do you know I'm going to throw a pun at you? No. Okay. All right. All right. We'll work on that for another day.
I feel like what just happened was I killed your idea, and I'm very sorry. You were working towards something, and I missed it.
No, I just want to tell art jokes, and I think a lot of people don't understand. I'll start. You go next, okay? Right? I'm going to create a T-shirt line that's 50% gray on the front and pure white on the back, and it's going to be called Calvin Klein.
We're not doing this.
Okay.
We're not doing this.
We're not doing this. Bonus content. We're going to do 25 minutes of Kory glaring at me while I tell art jokes.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, man. Getting back to the actual thing, I think there's a chance that me throwing my iPad off of the table face down might have thrown me off for a second.
Fair. Don't feel bad about that.
No.
That would throw many people off.
Well, but I don't like it. I don't like how it feels.
I don't want it to be broken.
I don't either.
And I don't want all this rich content
to be damaged to
have disappeared.
Yeah, no, it's not on there.
Okay, good.
It's not plugged in at all. It's recording
what's
here.
on your fancy computer?
What's on your
tablet?
Computer?
You can change your lights with that?
There was just notes, probably some art jokes, I would guess.
Yeah, I get it now.
Yeah. So
I see. It's all becoming clear.
Yeah, well, that's what we do for a living. So So as we were finishing up that
Yes.
thought around clarity, what would be some practical guidelines that we could lay down if somebody was saying, hey, I'm thinking about calling Kory, I'm thinking about calling Jeremy, I'm thinking about calling, whoever else does this. There won't be links for that third one in the profile. It'll just be the two of us. But what is some preparation? Maybe we'll just go back and forth because we didn't prepare this. Like back and forth on some ways of thinking, some things that might happen that surprise people. Any wide open here that would help them prepare for that consult meeting. Because they may not be that personality type that does well in that setting, but they may know that they need to be that for that meeting for it to go well. So not people that, people's instincts that are, this isn't going to be helpful, doesn't mean they can't bring themselves to understand it will be against all of their instincts.
Sure.
So what are some things they can do to prepare for that meeting?
Where are you today? Where do you want to be?
Yeah.
What's getting in the way of you getting there? And
Yeah.
what do you want to do about it?
Okay.
As it relates to any type of creative work, there are, how do I say this nicely? There are layers, and we're not going to be offended if you want to play in a different layer. So
That's right.
there are resources like Fiverr
Yep.
where you can get a rebrand, a logo from somebody on the other side of the world who copied that from somewhere else, by the way, and just changed
Right.
the text at the bottom to be your landscaping company. And you can pay anywhere from I don't even know. You could pay $5 to $50 for that.
Yeah, we would prefer you not do that specifically because, yeah. I mean,
but in all honesty, if where they are is I just want a mark to put on my cards,
right.
then that is the best solution.
Yeah,
for
and
them.
sometimes paying 4 people on there and you'll get one that you like, sort of thing. But there's also apps that do random logo
Sure.
generation.
Yeah.
That's not bad. You see a lot of coffee shops rocking around with like, it takes the font and it switches it around and it puts antlers and those sort
or
of things.
puts it in the steam of the coffee.
Yeah, there's no
Cool.
snobbery there on that.
No, I don't mean, good. God bless. That's probably
That's
the
right.
best for you. If, however, you're like, I recognize how important my brand is and I want to pay to be differentiated, because one of the fun games I like to play is look at a logo and guess the size of the company, or look at a logo and guess their annual income.
It's pretty close.
Like you can get pretty, here's an easy one.
You can do it with suits too.
Churches. I can look at
Yeah.
a church's logo and go, oh, you're running about 75 people in the country.
Yeah.
And I'm usually
Yeah.
pretty spot on.
Yeah, some of that is which isn't what you're saying, but some of that's the condescending, like you don't know what you're doing, so you did this. Some of it is like on purpose. Some of these venture firms like almost require some of their companies to
Sure.
look like other venture funded things
Get it.
because their branding isn't about their brand identity as much as it's about looking like a company that's worth raising money, those
Yeah.
sort of things. There's some strategy there.
So I would just ask those questions that I mentioned earlier, but then say, how much am I willing to invest into this? Because I see its value and I recognize how important it is. Now, if you're an artist hearing this, there's also huge freedom in that, because the day I stopped taking on $50 logo projects, I'm not talking from a financial perspective,
Right.
was one of the best days of my life.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Because those customers know they're getting a deal and end up sucking. They don't mean to, but they're the ones with the most requests for changes. You're taking time away from your family on a weekend to do this logo. The minute you change your rates to, you have to do some honest, this is to the artist. You have to do some honest assessment, like where does your work rate in terms of what other designers are doing? And you price yourself accordingly. This is a whole cost value conversation.
Right.
And you price yourself accordingly, game changer. And I thought, oh no, all my existing customers are going to run for the hills.
And they did.
And they did not.
Oh, I thought you just meant you got new customers that paid now.
And it was like,
Because mine did. The wedding customers don't suddenly become $800 wedding customers. Do not become $7,000 wedding customers.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
Yeah, I get it. But you go, now when I'm taking time away from my family, which is super valuable and
Yeah.
important. I've got 3 kids who are amazing, and I kind of like spending time with them.
Yeah.
Now when I'm doing it, I'm go, hey, daddy's buying a pool.
Yeah, exactly.
And it isn't about the money, but it is about like how seriously you take yourself.
We love what we do, but we don't love it enough to spend time away from our kids without that buying some sort of value. So we're in a capitalist system. So when we say like, oh, you just want to do it for the love of the art. Like that's for elementary school, junior high and stuff. Part of your art needs to be, is it profitable in the system that we operate in? Unless you've hit that other rung that we're talking about, and then you have freedom. But yeah, it's tough, man.
I guess what I'm saying is when you find the sweet spot of where you feel like you should live, what are the industry standards? Where does my work fall in relationship to that? It's a self, what do they call it when you're naturally filtering out the people who are the wrong customers?
Yeah.
That's okay. That's not a bad thing. I had somebody tell me once, if 1 out of every 4 or 5 people isn't telling you, I'd love to work with you, but I can't afford you, your prices are too low.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And you always have the option. One of the things we can talk to artists, maybe if we do another episode here. But one of the things that I did right away was, I added what my average price was. This was at my first major hike early on. Percentage-wise hike, not necessarily total dollars, but big hike. And I averaged dollars. And then I added a form when somebody wanted frankly, kind of meritless discount, like somebody just wanted to not get a discount. They filled out like a scholarship form.
Yeah.
Like legitimately, like, why are you asking for this? Because we don't just not charge the price.
Right.
So we wouldn't say that, but that's what that form said. Oh, that's so awesome. Go ahead and fill out this form. And the form had a bunch of questions about merit. And it was like, you get halfway through it and you go, no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
But
that's okay.
But what's crazy, I have one category that's been great on the low price, let them make up the price thing, which has been church family for weddings, because I don't shoot weddings anymore. And pretty consistently so far, I don't think it'd be this way in design work, but in weddings, it has been this way. Pretty consistently so far, it's been pretty proportional to the cost of the wedding itself. So even the low dollar weddings that I shoot comparatively, they're paying me way less than what I would have been my market value. Their wedding is also way less. So they're still paying, I'm still 20% of the wedding costs or 15% of the wedding costs. So that's gone pretty well, because that shows that I'm still a priority to them. It's I had one wedding where it was the highest I'd ever made, and I got there and realized that I was the lowest paid person there. And it was horrible. I mean, they were putting $1,000 centerpieces on a huge table, and I was just like, I'm lower than the wait staff, and they made me feel that way. They were just like, all right, I don't know, go do something.
Yeah, my version of that is the county adjacent to where I grew up paid something like $88,000 to have a consulting firm come in and come up with a mark for the county.
Whoa.
And when you see the thing, you're like, it's like some gears, clip art of gears with the county name and a slogan.
Wow.
And I know the guy that had to come in and do the cleanup work from that. He's a young designer who had to take the output from that agency.
And he did not get $88,000.
He did not get $88,000 and had to fix the deliverables from that effort. And you go, that's what they came up with for a rebrand for the county. $88,000 for some clip art in the name of your county with a plagiarized font.
By the way, one of the things you need in your organization is a salesman. So when you hire for this stuff, get a salesman. What that design firm did was they're just a salesman. There was no designer on board. That was just a guy that sells logos.
And I look at, I just did my alma mater, the high school that my brother
was
Dylan.
that the Bulldog?
Yeah. It's right behind
so
you
good.
on the helmet. And you look at the thought and the intention that went into that. Sorry about your herniated. You look at the thought and intention that went into that, and it was my alma mater, so I donated a portion of my services to that. But I'm super proud of that.
You should be, man. That's so cool.
If you Google Bulldog mascot logos,
you ain't gonna find that nowhere.
I would put it up there though with college and pro teams, and I can say that because it was a collaborative effort. We did it together. I'm just the guy who executed the design, but there was a lot of sketches, and they gave me their input. I'm so proud of how that turned out.
That's awesome, man.
That I think about the $88,000 clip art gears and what I could have charged.
Yeah. $87,000. If I get in that room and we're pitching together, it's 87.
Yeah. And you just, but that's how I want it to be, right? I want to be so darn proud for you because you're proud of what we created together.
Yeah.
it's not Kory disappeared into this 10 by 10 studio and churned out a thing and we picked our favorite.
Yeah.
It's like we have this iterative process where we do this together, that you have a more vested interest in the outcome.
Dude, and I've seen that consistently across your work. It's really awesome. I wish, there was talk a little bit of me doing a little bit of side facilitating before you joined the big company. There was some conversation there. So I'm glad that worked out the way it did. But
there are still doors. It's fine.
yeah,
We'll talk.
and again, I'm super committed to my day job, but I
both are.
am fully committed. Yeah.
There's going to be shirts.
But what I'm saying is, I really like that piece, that facilitation and stuff. And the reason I brought up that we had talked about me doing some of that with you is because I was so excited to see you in action. Even fly on the wall would have been fine. I don't have to facilitate. Just, it's such a neat part of the process, that illustration, because you're not just doodling, you're making creative choices to make sure you retain that thought. And
yeah, everything about it. Is the bulldog snarling? Is he not snarling?
Yeah.
Does he have the little whisker circles on his face or not? Is he standing proud or is he attacking? Like,
yeah. Is it a nice dog or a mean dog is where you start. And then you go, that's not where you start. But I'm just saying that's what the population's view of a dog is. Is it nice or mean? But it's, no, when you have your own dog, when it's your dog, it has all
it's
of
gotta
these.
be your bull.
Yeah, it's got, the butcher. No, but when it's your dog, you know that dog like it's a person. I mean, you know the personality traits, and you know when it's sad and disappointed. And I can really tell on this dog that you know this dog. This is this is your dog.
Yeah.
And they should be really grateful and proud, and you should be proud of the work you did, and grateful too, right? That you got a chance to do that. That's really neat.
It was a huge honor.
That'll be good forever, right? Like
it was
it's
a
gonna be
huge
long
honor
time.
that my family's been in that area for generations. And so like it really, like I get a little lumpy throated even talking about it because it meant so much to me to be able to like come back and like do this new mascot that I know generation of kids are going to rally around, and maybe one day we'll be on the middle of the football field. Yeah. That a guy from our town did that,
Such a cool story. That's what makes it interesting to me. Is your ownership of that dog. Yeah,
we're super proud of how it turned out. So shout out to Ada High School and everybody that was a part of that process. We'll
try to remember to throw that up on the screen. But good, man. Well, we got to at least take a potty break at minimum. And
longest episode ever.
We're gonna do some more puns. You said?
Definitely not.
See you guys later.